that there was a great opportunity, and that opportunity lay just a little bit north on the mainland side, and they realized that, you know, we can build a whole community. And they went to see T.V. Moore, who owned almost everything north of the Little River Canal, all the way up into the middle of North Miami. He also owned land in what today is Lemon City, Little Haiti, and Little River. And I'm happy to report that his great-granddaughter is a good friend, Kathy Moore. And Kathy is just terrific and is working very hard to keep the memory of her great-grandfather alive, which I'm doing everything I can to also. But the point is that Ellen Spears Harris and her cousin from Tennessee, Hugh Anderson, bought almost everything that T.V. Moore owned, almost everything. And what was up here at the time on the T.V. Moore farm were pineapples, avocados, mangoes, and some citrus. Eventually, that land would become El Portal, Miami Shores, part of North Miami, Biscayne Park. But the whole impetus for the great concept of the Shoreland Company, which included what is today Miami Shores. Remember that the original name, Town of Miami Shores, was a little bit further north. That Town of Miami Shores was created in 1932 by an act of the Florida legislature. I'm sorry, not the town, the village of Miami Shores. At the time the state legislature created the village of Miami Shores, part of that statute says that there can never be a town named Miami Shores. So the former Town of Miami Shores changed its name to Town of North Miami. And indeed, we look at today's Miami Shores and we recognize that for all intent and purpose, and yes, Ellen Spears Harris was assisted by her cousin from Tennessee, Hugh Anderson, but so much of it, the great majority of the concepts and the ideas, including the Mid-Bay Causeway, which was never built, including Miami Shores Island, which when the bust occurred, which broke the back of the great boom of the 1920s, there was going to be an island off of Miami Shores between the mainland and Surfside, and that was going to be Miami Shores Island. The original plan was that that island, and this was Ellen Spears Harris's plan, that island was to be the recreation island. And that island was, as planned, larger than all of the man-made islands in Biscayne Bay at the time. Remember, those man-made islands were only the Venetian and MacArthur Causeway. There was no 79th Street Causeway yet. Well, if you look at the shape of today's Indian Creek Village, that is what was planned as Miami Shores Island, not Bay Harbor Islands. That's another whole story. And that is another great woman, Ruth K. Broad, who was the wife of another great man, Shepherd Broad. And Ruth was as much involved in the building of the Bay Harbor Islands as her husband was. So we move on a little bit further, and we talk about the greatness of the people in Miami Shores. And one of those women was this lady. And some of you, while you may not recognize the lady, I'm going to name her in a moment, you may recognize the fellow she's standing with, a man by the name of Johnny Weissmuller, one of the great American swimmers. And this lady was Alice, well, her married name was Rogers. And Alice had gone to Ida M. Fisher High School on the beach, and then became a great swimmer and spent many, many years in Miami Shores. And so we're so honored that Alice is another of the terrific women who were part of the history of Miami Shores. Now, we go on from there, and I've already shown you several books But before we get on to another, it's very important that we look at this picture, because this man standing with this lovely lady is the real Colonel Cushman from the Cushman School. And this is his daughter with him. And she was the one who suggested to the colonel that there should be a fine private school. And it was she who picked out the location for today's famous Cushman School. Now, I want you to understand that time goes on, and I know you do. And the Brickell family, and through a series of very fortunate happenstances, I was able to purchase the Carmen Petsulis Mary and William Brickell collection. While I donated much of it to our friends at FIU, they said to me when I donated, "Seth, keep anything you like." And I did keep a few things, and among those is this wonderful photo. This is not Mary Brickell, but this is Billy and Marjorie with their son Butch in the middle. And Butch was Mary's, I think, great-grandson. I'm not sure if this was her son or her grandson, but at any rate, this is a 1988 photo, and there we have the Brickell family. So, indeed, the importance of the Brickell family can never be understated. And in so doing, we want to see that besides the Julia Tuttle signed letters, the only two Julia Tuttle signed letters known to exist in Dade County, which are in the Bramson archive, we also have the original of this blow-up. And this is a Mary Brickell signed letter, and this letter was written by Mary Brickell, you can see the signature, to the great William Gleason, no relation to Jackie. William Gleason was a great name in Florida history, terribly overlooked, but it's a name that if you're a Florida historian, you want to make yourself aware of. And so this is an original Mary Brickell signed letter. And the question can be, well, Seth, if you have the letter, why don't you show it to us? And the answer will be, well, yes, I will be happy to show it to you, because here's the original letter. I know it's hard to see because I got it was used in a book. But the point is that it exists. And very important that these items are preserved. So remember, though, that's the early years. As we move on through history, and we learn about some of the less than savory events that occurred which affected our Black and African American community, we can't just look at the not happy. We need to look at some of the great things. And of course, the names in Dade County history of the wonderful Black people who meant an African American. You know, I want to be careful, I don't want anybody offended. But one of the greatest names was Athalie Range. I had the honor of knowing Athalie Range. And the Range family was in the funeral home business. And Athalie was the first Black